Hey, welcome back. It's Nolan Mathias, and today we're discussing the headline out of the Financial Post from CIBC economist saying that if you think Toronto condos are expensive now, just you wait. And I'm going to show you a cool little rent versus buy calculator that you can use to determine whether or not you should be in the market. But before we get into it, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And don't forget about our race to 10,000 subscribers. Thank you so much to the 3,500 new subscribers in the last 28 days. We are going to hit 10,000 subscribers very, very shortly. And when I do, we're going to give away somebody's monthly rent or mortgage payment for a month just for subscribing to this channel. So if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead, click that subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, and it's definitely worth it. The definitive guide on how to manage your credit, product, penalty, price, in that order. It's never been more important to get your mortgage right. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's discuss this headline, and I'm going to pull it up on the screen here so you can see it. If you think Toronto is unaffordable now, you wait. CIBC's Benjamin Tal on GTA housing. And, this is a really interesting comment. They just did a study. They just did some research through CIBC where they were basically looking at the cost of condos, the rental market, and specifically one of the things that came out is they looked at landlords and investors who 35% of which are losing money on their rental properties. So in other words, they're saying they're not making cash flow. And when CIBC went to those people and said, why are you losing money? Why are you not positive cash flow on these properties? Don't you want to sell them? Looking for that answer to whether or not supply would be coming into the market. They basically turned around and said, no, listen, the mortgage is getting paid down every single month at a pretty high rate. And we believe that rents are going to come back. And throughout this research, it's a really interesting conversation because what Tal said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not quoting, but what Tal basically said is you can expect that the condo market in downtown Toronto is going to grow and property values there are going to continue to go up. And he cited a few things. He cited, first of all, the fact that the fundamentals, so the borrowing guidelines and all of those things, still support the values that are happening in Toronto, especially when you compare them to major metropolitan areas like Manhattan or Berlin or other places like London that have really, really, really high property values. And what he's basically saying is that the prices in the Toronto areas, given the fact that we aren't doing what happened in 2008 in the US and giving away loans to everybody with no income, no jobs, no assets, that's ninja loans. That was basically what caused the liquidity crisis in the US. Basically what he's saying is that you can expect that these prices will continue to rise because high income earners are going to continue to buy property in that downtown area and throughout Toronto because of the fact that it is a highly desirable city to live in. It's one of the 5 best cities in the world, according to The Economist. Calgary and Vancouver are also on that list. But, when you've got a city like that that is highly desirable to live in, you can expect the values to go up. And then what he also did is he cited the fact that we're going to see increased immigration in the near future, which means that we're probably going to see more and more people moving into that downtown Toronto area. And then he talked about the fact that this move to less urban areas is probably going to shift as vaccines roll out and people want to get back to their normal lives. Because what he cited and what he talked about in that video is he talked about the fact that people who work downtown and who are eventually going to have to go back to work downtown, well, they're either going to be faced with a very long commute or having to rent or buy a property in the downtown area when they go back to working in their downtown offices. So, he's really thought this out. And, I love Benjamin Tal. I don't always love where he believes interest rates are going to go. I've mentioned that on other videos, but I love the fact that, he thinks through this in a pretty reasonable way. And I think he's probably right. If you are a downtown GTA borrower or buyer, you are probably going to be able to reasonably expect that housing prices in that downtown core are going to continue to go up for the next several years. And there was one key thing, and this was really interesting to me. He talked about borrowing from the future, and he talked about the run up in prices basically being Canadians borrowing increased real estate values from the future. So what he's not saying is that there's going to be a real estate crash 2 or 3 years down the road, but what he is predicting is that over the next few years, property values are probably going to be pretty flat because all of that growth that we would expect in 2022, 2023, 2024 has been moved forward into 2021. So, really interesting comments from him. I love his perspective on this. I don't love the perspective that values are going to continue to increase, because that sucks if you are living in those downtown Toronto markets. But for the most part, I think he's right with respect to it being a highly desirable city. And if it's somewhere that you desire to be, I think that you should probably be looking at buying in that market. Now, obviously, his comments are in contrast to what many Canadians are believing right now, which is over 1/5 of Canadians are hoping that housing prices fall significantly. I'm guessing that these are mostly the people who don't already own properties. By the way, looking at this headline here, about 1/5 hope that prices increase as well, and or at least 40% believe that housing prices will rise as well. So, but there's a small sector of the economy that is basically saying, we want the housing prices to fall so that we can get in and so it can be more affordable. And yeah, that would be nice, but I wouldn't be counting on it if I were you. So, this is all an interesting conversation, especially as the BMO CEO basically had to come out this week and roll back what one of his head economists said. It might have been his chief economist. I can't remember if that's the BMO video from last week, but he basically had to roll back what his BMO economist said, stating that they should be putting everything on the table when it comes to cooling the housing market. And how do you, when your chief economist comes out and puts out a report that says, hey, we need to cool down the housing market, how, if you are the CEO of a big bank, do you come out and say, whoa, 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 we don't necessarily believe that there should be policy changes, and not throw your economist under the bus? Well, I think this is how you do it. You say Canada should prepare housing fixes, but not yet act. So in other words, what he's saying is, yeah, go ahead, put the things on the table, but he's basically saying to the Liberal government, and joining in with TD CEO, saying, let's not act too fast. Let's see where this goes before we make any major changes. And I think he's right. I think this is probably good advice from the CEO of a major bank to the federal government, is let's not get too crazy. Let's see how, these lockdowns that we're rolling back into in the next week are going to play out. Because if we are continuing to go into lockdowns and then no lockdowns and lockdowns and no lockdowns, that's going to have an adverse effect on the economy. It's definitely going to slow things down. So making changes in housing policy right now may not be the best thing to do before we see how all the other things that are happening play out. So, great advice, I think, from BMO CEO. I applaud him for that. Now, what I want to show you today, and this is kind of the crux of the video, is if you're sitting on the fence and you can't decide if you want to buy or if you want to sell, or if you want to continue renting, I highly recommend, I'll put the link to the description in below, going to and taking a look at this rent versus buy calculator, because it might provide some insight to you on whether or not you should be jumping into the market based on where values are going. Because I don't think people should be looking at, the nominal price of a house and saying, oh, that's too high. I think you need to look at affordability and you need to look at opportunity costs, because that metric that a lot of people like to use, which is the price of housing compared to average income, it's not a very good metric, because what it doesn't include is the actual affordability and the cost of owning the house, which is the mortgage payment. And, that's why I think looking at something like this can help put somebody's buying decision into perspective. So, I'm obviously going to use pretty much a lower value than what you'll see across the country, just because I'm going to use real values from a property that we just purchased, so that somebody could see what a downtown condo in Calgary would look like if they had to choose versus rent versus buy. And if you are living in Toronto, you can do the same sort of thing. Punch in your rent, punch in your down payment, punch in the price of a comparable property, one that you would like to buy. And this will pretty much tell you the amount of time it would take to break even if you were to purchase rather than rent. And I'm going to tell you right now, if it's under 3 or 4 years, if it's under the time frame that you expect to live in the style of home that you would be buying, it probably makes a pretty good, probably makes sense to actually go ahead and make that purchase. Forget what the housing prices are, because there's a good chance that those are going to go up and stay up. I'm going to add to this one other thing, is when I look at housing prices and I think about housing prices going up versus staying up, I think about it from the perspective of, when people start saying it's real estate, it always goes up in value, and everybody accepts that real estate values are going to continually go up in value. That's when I'm going to start to get worried. And that's when I think that real estate values are going to start to go down. But as long as there's people saying, oh, they're too high, it's going too high, this doesn't make sense, well, that tells me that there's still room in the market for this to grow. Because once people kind of throw in the towel, that's when you know that there's probably problems. And that's when I think real estate values will be getting too high. But that's just an aside. I want to show you this tool because I think it's a good tool. So purchase price on this property would be $220,000. Interest rate on a variable would be 1.5%. Put in the total amortization, put in the property taxes, the condo fee, down payment, the cash that we would have on hand in order to put down, other closing costs. And then this basically calculates in the insurance premium for us and calculates a total down payment. And what this tool does is it basically gives us a report that tells us how long it would take for us to break even. If we had, let's say, 10% returns on the money that we're going to put into a down payment versus buying the property. And what it factors in really well is the fact that if you buy a property, rather than your rent going to paying off somebody else's mortgage, it's paying off yours. And it factors in the actual gain in equity. So in this case, we have about $600 to $700 a month going towards equity. And therefore, the equity in the home goes up. After year one, it's $17,000. Then after year two, it goes up to $31,000, and so on and so forth, based on whatever we expect the values of the properties to increase. But what I love about this tool and what you can use it for is you can use it to break down whether or not it actually makes sense for you to buy. And if you use this tool and you know that you're going to be in a property for 5 years, and you know that in approximately 2 years, it's going to be a break-even proposition for you, and you're going to be better off buying than renting. Well, then what that allows you to do is it allows you to buy a property, start building up your equity, and ultimately allows you to kind of get into that game of increasing real estate values without getting left behind. So I'm a firm believer that if somebody is not in the market but knows that they want to be in the market, regardless of if you're buying at the top or the bottom right now, you should definitely be trying to get into the market. Steer clear of the craziness, like paying $140,000 over list price in multiple offers. I think is something that nobody needs to do. If your market's that crazy, maybe it makes sense to wait until things aren't as crazy. But otherwise, if you've got a normal market and you can get in for maybe just a little bit over list price and it makes sense versus renting, and especially using a tool like this, you can figure that out, then I definitely think people should be jumping into that market. Okay, so one last thing before you go is, I've done a lot of reflecting on this YouTube channel and what it has allowed us to do, because in the past, we've always been a company that only takes repeat and referral clients. We typically didn't open it up to people that we didn't know. But what I realized in the last couple of months of doing this is that we have this huge opportunity to help people. And a lot of people have applied for mortgages through our mortgage company, Mortgage 360. And that's absolutely awesome. We love helping those people. And we love the fact that they're trusting us with basically the task of going out shopping for them and making sure they get the best mortgage at the best rate. But what I've also realized is that we can't help everybody. And some people want to just go out and shop on their own. They want to know that no stone was left unturned. And that's totally fine. But my thought process and my fear was that people weren't getting all of the information that we have access to, and they weren't getting the type of knowledge that comes with 18 years of being in the business. And there's certain things that I can't necessarily say on YouTube about the industry. There's certain things I can't say about how much profit there is in a mortgage. There's certain things that I would just get a lot of flack for if I mentioned them publicly. So what I did is I thought about my why, which is to help people thrive and give back. And I decided to put together a course that would basically teach anybody who wants to be a do-it-yourselfer how to go out and negotiate the best rates and get the best rates. So I've put together this course. It has information on where to find the lowest rates. It has information on how to negotiate with a bank, how to negotiate with a broker, how to negotiate on your renewal. And then it has one chapter, which I think is worth the price of admission alone, which is a chapter on how much profit there is in a mortgage. And then another chapter on top of that, which is what is negotiable and what's not. So, I put this out there. It's going to be rolled out tomorrow on our monthly rate video. But because you've made it to the end of this video, I want to make you an offer, and it is not an offer that will be there tomorrow. So take advantage of it if you need to or want to take advantage of it. But if you're watching this video, you can use the discount code BOC to get 50% off, an additional 50% off of this course, just because you made it to the end of this video, and because I want to have a few people going through the course and taking a look at it before I roll it out to pretty much everybody on that rate video tomorrow. So discount code BOC, go ahead. I'll put the link in the description below. And if you want the secrets to getting the lowest interest rate course, click on that link, put in that BOC discount code, and we'll see you in that training course. So as always, if you found this video useful, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. Don't forget about our race to 10,000 subscribers, and we'll see you on the very next one. Cheers.